everyone. I'm Kevin, one of the Lucas brothers of Unicron.com, and today is a very exciting day for us. Actually, this might be one of the pinnacle moments of fun we've had in our now 24-year history, because today we are here to talk about this big guy, the multiversal singularity, devourer of worlds, the chaos bringer himself, Unicron. Now, before we get started, a quick formality. I need to mention that we ourselves are backers of this crowdsourced HasLab Unicron project. Actually, each of my two brothers backed it, and I personally bought and paid for two. Now, I also need to tell you that this gorgeous piece that you see before you is not one of those. This is actually a final engineering pilot, which is not quite a prototype and may or may not be completely indistinguishable from the ones that come off the assembly line. It was graciously provided to us on loan by Hasbro for purposes of this interview and a photo gallery review, which I will be posting separately. Now, with all of that said, I would like to thank Unicron for joining us here today. And also with us, we have Ben Montano, who is the Senior Director of Global Brand Marketing for Transformers. Thank you for joining us and this awesome opportunity. Ben.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I think obviously, Kevin, we're here hanging with you guys because of the namesake. It made a lot of sense to hang and talk, as you have attached yourself to the most evil of beings in the Transformers world.
You know, Toy Fair would have been 2 weeks ago, and we usually see one another a couple times a year. It's been a lonely year.
Yeah, and Kevin, for those that don't know you well enough, a little glimpse into Toy Fair. Usually Kevin comes in with a headgear flashlight to optimize lighting in our showroom. So I'm maybe revealing some secrets, Kevin, you didn't want out there. But Kevin is, I can tell you, is particular about best-in-class photos, so he comes prepared. So here we are virtually instead.
We try. For a while, you guys had like a disco ball, and it was like flashing purples and greens and blues all over.
That did make it tough for good photos, yeah.
Right. Maybe the question we all want to know the most is, when might we get this thing? It's been a long time coming. What can you tell us about when this thing might show up for people?
We will actually start shipping very soon. So anyone that backed through Hasbro Pulse will receive notification over the next week with a estimated timeline for receipt. So we will begin shipping in the next coming week. But there will be a phased out plan. As you can imagine, it's a huge box, and it takes a considerable amount of trucks to move these things out. So we'll be clearly communicating that to all backers starting next week. So for all that have been just patiently or impatiently waiting, they are coming very, very soon. But again, our Hasbro Pulse team will communicate to everybody when to expect your specific toy. So I will admit some may get them a little bit before others. We're trying to take into account, obviously, parts of the country and everything else, but shipping very soon.
Is it the first that ordered that will be the first that ship, or?
I can't promise that. I think we're trying to, there's trying to be fair to everyone, get this out across the country. So first in, first out, maybe not. So you might get lucky. I don't know who knows who they're the first backer. I don't think we acknowledged backer number one, though. Although I will say, Kevin, when I was at New York Comic-Con back in 19, I did have people come up screen grabbing, showing me what backer number they were at that time, or at least the backer number after they had just committed to it. So someone may have a screen grab of backer number one. I think I was in the 2,000 or 3,000s myself, but I did officially back one. Made sure I got mine.
All right, so let's jump into the Unicron toy itself. I mean, when we have this thing in front of us, for the people who have been lucky enough to see it at New York Comic-Con or San Diego when it was first debuted, you hear sort of one universal reaction, which is like, nothing can prepare you for the size of this thing, and pictures only go so far. And when you get to transform it, now that I've been able to, it is what a masterpiece, really. It's not branded as such, but I mean, it's just got the joint tensions, the sculpting detail that you could possibly want. Could we talk a little bit about the design process? Obviously, something this gigantic probably had its own unique challenges to pull something like this off.
Yeah, I mean, interesting how we got to this place. I think when we first started, and crazy enough, we actually started this project February of 2018. So it was, well before, almost 18 months before we officially went into crowdfunding. Original plan was to actually announce the crowdfund November of 2018, 11/11/18 was what we were targeting in partnership with our retail partners in Asia. And we just weren't ready. I think we were, overwhelmed. And what as we approached this, because our starting point was a Titan figure. We're like, yeah, we've been doing 22-inch, 24-inch, figures. We can figure this out, not a problem. Um, and we were surprised, and we had a whole task force between Hasbro and Takara Tomy that was established just for this, with weekly standing meetings and calls for a year and a half, which is not normal for an initiative like this. And a lot of it had to do with, as we uncovered, the scale that this thing had to be. The starting point was the sphere and the circle, and establishing that first. And we and our friends in Takara really wanted to make sure that it was a perfect circle, and that presented just a magnitude of challenges. And then as we then pulled back the shell to reveal the robot, we obviously worked a lot on what does the scale need to be. We started from a Titan figure, and we actually went up to where the figure was about 3 or 4, maybe 6 inches bigger than the current final product. And obviously we found what we feel is the right scale here. And we did take a lot of learnings from the hip joints, the knees, ankles from Titan figure. But when you're tripling the weight, or more so on some of them versus some Titan figures on this, we had to build several prototypes and test just the rigidity, and to your point, just I don't say the stiffness, but how we lock those joints so that it can hold the poses without being too difficult to ratchet, one direction or another. So we were definitely surprised at how much we had to change from a Titan figure from an engineering standpoint to create this. And most of the focus was on the hips and the hips and the knees, to be honest with you, and because of the sheer weight.
Yeah, I imagine it's not just like, let's just make all these joints bigger. That probably wouldn't
No.
be enough, right? And you touched on this idea of, the shell of it. And I think there was a little bit initially a backlash from some fans about, well, having it be a shell former, I think is
Sure.
the term you see used. What I will say about how this is put together is that it's everything collapses in such a nice, neat format. What people I think don't like, what I don't like about a shell former is when getting those things to line up properly gets frustrating if it doesn't snap together, or you have to fiddle with it for a long time. And in reality, the way things collapse into his legs and on the back is actually very sort of gratifying. It's like, oh, everything just has its just right place, right? And that it lines up allows you ultimately to have like the top priorities clearly for you were make the robot as close to show accurate perfection as you can get, make the planet mode as show accurate as you can get, without having to, make him curvy and spherical in places that normally he wouldn't be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think bravo to how it got pulled off. And yeah, like the knee joints, it's obviously not just a regular, it's just the right amount of tension in order
Yeah.
to, get it to hold the pose. I have it on the stand here because I didn't want to worry about it, but you talked
Yeah.
about, does it stand without the stand? And
Well, you've had it, Kevin. What have you tried it
yeah,
out?
I really,
Yeah.
yes. And then yes, it does, right?
Yeah, I would not suggest maybe one-legged stances without the stand
Right,
personally.
right.
Um, uh, but yeah, obviously our intentional design was to not require the stand in robot mode, and I think the team nailed it. well there. I think, as you talk about the panels, going from planet to robot, it is a trade-off, right? And the more you collapse those, the more you create, like you said, the potential uh, issues with interlocking panels in robot mode, right? The more those are smaller, the more seams you create, and the likelihood of it not lining up. So those are the decisions as we went through the overall process of developing this toy, as we did function testing, tool planning, deco planning, and everything. Um, there were to decide to make larger panels just provides uh, more of a smoother surface texture, but also limits the amount of contact points or kind of fractures within it. But I do think, and hopefully you and everyone else as you get them in planet mode, I think the team did a great job sculpting the planet mode that you almost don't see those connection points and creases. They become one with the overall sculpt of the planet, which I think is what's part of the magic.
The one joke that we had after transforming it the first time, by the way, so my son is 15, and he and I did it in about 20 minutes, so it wasn't too bad.
Nice.
Yep. Now that we each took a half of it and kind of got it going back and forth, the joke after we got through it was, all right, now that we've done that, if you're a real true expert, we can transform it without the stand.
Have you tried it yet? No.
No, no, your arms would get tired.
It's pretty heavy.
Yeah. As much as we all stared at the looks off the prototype, and they were everywhere on social media and your sites and ours and all over the place, a lot of what I've seen in terms of fan reaction is in response to any change that's happened. So we should talk a little bit about those changes. The first one I'd like to talk about is the yellow. So when we saw it at particularly San Diego Comic-Con, I think the lights were sort of very fluorescent and bright.
Yeah.
And it made the yellow look quite, I thought, fluorescent yellow.
Yeah.
So lots of feedback came from fans. You guys listened.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was, I don't want to say maybe more canary yellow at a point in time. And I think what's interesting as we continue to dive into this project, even as we watched the Transformers movie from '86, we looked at prior toys that we've done of Unicron. It was you trying to find that right color. And as our engineer Lindsay even shared on one of our recent backer updates, matching yellows across different materials, painted versus molded, is one of the most challenging things ever. And yellow is an interesting color that when on different lighting, it looks different. Yellow under fluorescent, painted versus molded, actually those two colors can look different versus just under natural light. And it's been an interesting challenge for us. Obviously, our hero character Bumblebee is all yellow, and we found it to be interesting. We have almost 6 different executions of yellow on one toy. But I think on this one, as we continue to study and do our plannings, it was an area that we pivoted from the prototype. And again, we did reference, again, the movie and other areas, and felt more of this kind of orangish hue to the yellow. Just felt more appropriate, felt more, evil looking too here. I mean, canary yellow doesn't necessarily seem as imposing and dominating as you would expect on Unicron. But it's interesting, like, you and I talked when you watch the movies, if you screen grab anywhere, you get like 8 different, shades of orange and yellows. And if you're watching Blu-ray versus a VHS, I mean, it's crazy how colors change from TV to the format you watch it on. So it was just it was an ongoing process, and it was one we did hear loud and clear, Kevin, that generally that bright yellow didn't feel right. So is something that we pushed as we continue through the process. We're happy with it.
Yeah, I love it. Trying to color match exactly to the movie. Like, I think about a character like Hot Rod, our perception is largely shaped on what was the original toy, was this really deep maroon color. And if you actually color matched to perfection, you'd have a really pink Hot Rod. I don't think fans would like it. So there's this sort of delicate balance between, like,
maybe we'll have to try that someday as a Gen Slash.
Yeah, maybe an absolute
fuchsia Hot Rod.
I'd love to see how that look, because you're constantly sort of striking that balance. It's as much as like, what do you want it to be? And I think where you ended up was right on the yellow here. So thank you for listening to the fans and the feedback on the yellow. I think in particular, I think it makes a big difference. Let's touch on the maw.
Yes, the maw was an interesting one. I think there's obviously it's a very complicated mechanism that we infuse into a giant sized figure. But that was another area like the studies we did on the yellow, getting our materials and colors. As we continued through the process, and testing everything, we felt that we wanted to focus on optimizing the long-term functionality of this product in a big way, and that was a major part of why we landed on the different colorations within the mall, where you see the blue gray inside and the yellow. So quite a big reason for that difference was the material we molded it in and ensuring that we weren't compromising the long-term functionality of it. The other side, though, as we've studied more and more, as you just alluded to with your studying of hot rod, is the inner workings and the teeths and grindings of Unicron has not always been just yellow, yellow, yellow. And our prototype was that. So I think you see a lot of that like first impression. But as we've dug in, and I know you've uncovered this yourself, there is more than meets the eye to the maw and the teeth and the planet-eating portion of Unicron, and that informed our decision as well.
Yeah, it was jarring the first time I saw it visually, as much as I looked at it, and particularly when you see with the prototype, when you turn the ring and those teeth just come out, it is really just one of the prettiest and nifty. Yeah. It's just such a cool feature.
It's almost hypnotizing.
I mean, it really, I know, I love it. I keep getting drawn to the functionality within that maw. And I think as I've looked at it more, and then even gone back and referenced what happens in the movie, yeah, that those inner teeth pinchers are not yellow. Where my initial thought was, oh, it should all be yellow. The more I went back and looked at it, and realized like, oh, that it's not supposed to be. There's precedent for it to be those inner workings to be grays and blacks. In fact, exactly like what you ended up with. I was even looking back at the Armada Unicron toy, right? And I mean that has gray pinchers inside that kind of crush the Arbalis's ship. That's not all yellow. So our perception is just of like, oh, maybe I wanted it all yellow. I thought just based so much just on that's what we got used to with that initial prototype. If it makes it more sturdy and not worrying about paint chipping or something with turning that dial and it stays sturdy, then all the better. I think what you ended up with is awesome.
Yeah, I think the contrast when you really look at it, any fan, you have in mind what the expectation are, like you said, of a pink versus red hot rod. And I think generally the more, as yourself and others that I've talked to, some of the fans as you alluded to before, in Asia have this product in hand. Just the sheer scale, the function, and even the color break just adds more personality to the figure in both modes.
What other changes were made between what we saw as prototype? Let's talk about what else might we not have noticed yet.
Yeah, I'll say there's some small changes that were made to the small little figures that came with it. The arc is one in particular. I think when we originally showed it, it was all yellow. And we felt that we had the opportunity to add some silver hits and bring a little more personality to the arc. So excited for fans to get their hands on that. The other one, oh, there he is on the stand, ready to fly away. I love the stand. Was a great idea.
You might have to.
It looks like there's some extra. There may be some extra pegs.
So what is this for exactly?
Oh, I think you and every fan watching this is going to have to wait, maybe not too much longer, to find out. Maybe there'll be some companion pieces to go with that stand. So planning ahead. Transformers and HasLab Pulse social channels coming soon. So I think that the arc was one, and the other, obviously, the minifigs that came with it too. And we shrunk those down. I think part of when we first showed them, they were larger, and there's as silly as it may sound, I think they were about an inch, and we made them like quarter or half an inch. And generally, fans are like, those look too big. I'm like, how is 1 inch too big? So as we shrunk them down, as you get too small, you have to find that fine balance of sculpt detail with what you can deco and connecting parts so they don't become almost to a point where they would crumble in your hand if things are too small. And so we, on the minifigs, we wanted to make sure that they would stay rigid and stay informed. So we gave them a platform to stand on. And in testing, kind of deco operations on them, it was really compromising the sculpt. So we chose just to stay kind of true to the character color and as much detail as we could put on a 1/4 inch mini figure as the way to go. So, and I think when you put them in scale and you step back even 2 feet, I mean, you can you can barely see them next to the giant Unicron figure.
Yeah, I'm looking for mine, and the ones
You
that
can't
came
see them if they're more than 3 feet away. You won't be able to see
right,
them.
right. I need my magnifying lens.
Yeah.
I mean, the paint deco on this actually turned out really quite nice, and I mean, to take paint from the minifigs that are really practically microscopic and put it on this, I think it's a good decision.
Yeah, and it was honestly, it was less about trading off. It was we wanted to do it there, and I think for this product, we had a directional idea of the amount of deco we wanted to put on it, but at the end of the day, it came down to what's right, where to put it, that's going to make sense and within the function and overall quality. So the figures, it just didn't make sense. It would have compromised the sculpt as little as the sculpt, detail as you can get out of a 1/4 inch figure.
Let's talk about people in Europe and England were not able to order it maybe directly, and as such, boy, they were mad. I think the toy found distribution channels eventually. So then I would keep replying to people that there's clearly some difficulty in international. It's not that Hasbro doesn't want to sell Unicron toys to you guys and girls out there. Has that changed, improved? I know there's some talk about Pulse in Europe, and can we talk a little bit about European distribution?
Yeah, no, definitely. We did recently announce that Hasbro Pulse will be expanding its reach to the UK as kind of the next step, and we've been proud of what Hasbro Pulse has been able to do, and the fandom's been, I think, positively responding to the platform, the social media, and all the content we deliver, as well as the toys. As we launched Unicron, our Hasbro Pulse platform was limited to North America, and it was an interesting thing that didn't really come up as much with the first Hasbro HasLab item, which was the Star Wars project. Is the fandom for Transformers, has a unique global footprint. And for us, we wanted to make sure we found a solution, and it took us some time to find a right way to do it under a model that is a crowd-funded direct consumer model. And we were fortunate enough to have partners like Kapow in UK and some other partners throughout Asia to bring this product to those fans. And we learned a lot through that process. And as we look to the future and the potential for other Transformers HasLab initiatives, we'll continue to partner with Hasbro Pulse to find ways that we can go direct, and if not, ways to continually improve our opportunities for global fans to get access to things like this. So we definitely learned as we go, Kevin, for sure. I am proud of, and I know the Hasbro Pulse team is, that we were able to get it successfully backed. I think the final number, obviously we hit over the 8,000 as we had published online, but the end result number was close to 11,000 globally on Unicron. So very exciting to see that all come to life. I can remember, again, I was sweating in New York Comic Con, refreshing every few minutes the ticker to watch that thing as it creeped towards the number. And while we made it invisible at 8,000, once it hit, it skyrocketed in the last 12 plus hours, which was really fun to see.
Yeah, why is that? I was also hitting refresh over and over for however long that period went. Come on, people.
I know it's a psychology in the world of crowdfunding. There's the hope, no hope type model. They'll never reach it. Oh, I'm not going to invest if it'll never make it. And as you see the number creep, you don't want to be left out. So the FOMO checks in. It's finding that right number that people move from, no hope to FOMO is when the avalanche happens. It's interesting to watch. I think what was also interesting is some people were putting their HasLab online for secondary market before we even officially had it backed, to the tune of like $2,000-3,000. And I think that also stoked people like, wait, what? I don't want to be in that situation. So it's an interesting thing for anyone that's done a crowdfunded project on the many platforms that exist out there. It is an experience on its own. It's very stressful, but very appealing when you hit that successful mark.
It's going to be fascinating to see what happens over the next even year or two. Should we talk about a second run of this thing? Is that in the works? Are we ready to? Are you going to launch this thing again ever?
That is not planned. I mean, we committed. This is for those that back it. This is the product that we're going to deliver. So currently, there are no plans to do anything additionally with it. If there was a plan, it would be significantly different. The variants, obviously want to honor those that back the original. We maintain the value that is has created in the market.
I shudder to think what's going to come of this over time, because as rare and expensive as it was even initially, it's kind of exciting. I want to talk a little bit about packaging as well, right?
Yeah.
One of my favorite, and it's funny because it's just something that sticks out in my mind from my childhood. One of my favorite sets was the Ariel, and I got an Ariel Bot gift set for Christmas back in 1986, and to put them back in the styrofoam, they had like a little styrofoam backer thing. I put them back in, and I'd set it on my shelf like, ooh, it's still there. I was kind of pleasantly surprised to see the styrofoam in there. I thought is kind of nifty for that reason, and also just from the standpoint of all of the people that aren't going to have the extra 3 feet of shelf space or a dedicated shelf for this one toy. Might need to put it in there as we figure out what to do with this giant thing once we get it. The bedside stand, where are you putting yours?
I know, right? Exactly, right. Next, when I have the interviews like this, I can put it under the computer, and it'll still be higher than me in a chair. So interesting. There's obviously a lot of dialogue on the packaging and how we chose the direction we chose. When we first started this project, the actually intention was to brand it under our Gen Selects collection. As we've continued to build that universe of products, which tend to be, as we've said in Generation Selects, more niche, specialty type initiatives, products toys you never thought you'd get again. And in many cases, we limit the distribution and runs on them. And we felt that this made sense in that space, as it really was a limited release type product. So when we approached the packaging, it was through the lens of Generation Selects, which is brown corrugate with one color, black print, and and just that kind of simple but kind of mature, cool approach that we have done since the start of it. As we approached nearing the completion and releasing this, honestly, we decided just to pull the Gen Selects branding, partly because as we talked a lot more about completionists and collectors, there are many out there that want to complete Gen Selects collections, and we didn't ever include Generation Selects in our marketing for this product. So we didn't inform anyone of that. So we just felt like it made sense to say, you know what, there may be some completionists out there that can't do that now if they hadn't backed this. So we left the creative and visual direction intact of the packaging and the graphics, but just removed the branding marker from the box, as it really was never part of the messaging equation. So that was really the inspiration behind it. We were also, I would say, inspired with the character art on it. Is if you remember, we did a sketch of a poster early on while we were doing the crowdfunding, and showed all the layers. And we had, the first, it was just the line art, and we're like, that looks amazing. We should use something like that on the box versus just, the name of the product. So that also kind of inspired the graphic direction on the box.
Yeah, you're talking about the poster by Marcelo Matera, I believe, right?
Correct. Yeah, Marcelo's. Yeah, it was great to work with him. He was a lot of fun. And I'm sure his hand was quite cramped after I think he knocked that out for us in about a day and a half. Not the usual amount of time. I don't think he slept the entire time.
When this thing is large and as it is, shows up, that I'm not going to necessarily be pulling out my own, magnifying lens and look to see if it's Is there a little scratch somewhere? Is this a perfect condition box? It's cardboard, it's sturdy, it does what it's supposed to, functional, and it puts the focus, I think, more on the toy, on what's
Yeah.
inside it, than like, do I have the world's most perfect packaging? Because there's no way something this big is going to show up in absolutely perfect shape. It's got to travel a lot of miles before it gets to your doorstep. So I'm actually kind of glad that it won't turn into a lottery of who's got one that actually showed up with the world's most perfect packaging.
Package grading. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And I think you saw, if you watch some of the backer updates, we did a lot of testing, right, on the stability and the security of the product inside this thing, and corner dropping and throwing it and stuff. So our priority 100% was the toy inside. But visually on the box, the inspiration was, our kind of Gen Selects, that specialty collection.
You like the goatee or the soul patch?
Fan of the goatee, and that was an interesting one, Kevin. So for those that followed closely through the crowdfunding period, I will confess we had zero plan to release a secondary chin at the time of kickoff. And as we read the boards and followed, the commentary, again, it goes to the movie, like, we talked about before, how many variations of colors and characters show up in the movie randomly. And that was something we actually prototyped in about 3 days, and quickly took some photos and decided, you know what, we have to include this in the offering. It just has to happen. We were knocking it out on the fly. And thankfully, there was a positive response at the time. Again, going through these crowdfunded projects, you got to keep your ear to the ground. And this was one that there was a pretty good groundswell for the variations of the chins. And we just said, let's do it. Let's pull the trigger. Let's go.
Well, and it goes to the way back what we were talking about with colors and trying to get it perfect. There's not even really that many scenes that you see Unicron in robot mode in the original film, and even in those few scenes you see, there's variations just in his face. Like sometimes he has the pointed goatee thing, like notch, and other times it's that little soul patch kind of deal.
Yep. Oh, I think he's behind you giving a thumbs up that he's good with either one of them.
He likes them both, right? Yeah. I really liked the video of that you showed of the assembly process, and to give fans an idea of just how many hands this thing has to go through before. I mean, everything from like senior management to approve and say let's take the giant leap of faith with this enormous thing, expensive toy, to I kind of like seeing the guy at the end of the assembly line that had to transform 11,000 of these things into robot mode, right? And every step in between. Like, it's a lot of people from its inception to here it is showing up on our doorstep. Like who had to touch this thing?
Someday we'll publish a book, Kevin, just about the Unicron project.
Right?
We have plenty of photos that we've taken that may never surface of our team around a table back in 2018 and beyond. And what's interesting, and you talk about how many hands have touched this, our team, many of us. Now, I was fortunate enough to be part of this project since its inception, but more than half of the team, even at Hasbro, changed over from beginning to end. Just when you think about a product that takes 3 years from conception to in market, that's a long time. So yeah, I think back in 18, as I said a little earlier, our intention was to kick this off in 18, and we just needed a little more time. And we brought it to our senior management team ahead of Toy Fair 2019. Shared the plan, and our leadership team paused the project at that point in time. I think just the magnitude of the investment overall, from every development resource and investment we would need to make in this project, it was overwhelming for sure. And we walked out of that meeting thinking, wow, we just spent a whole year working on this project, and now it's shelved. And we looked around at each other and said, this can't happen. This has to go to market. This has to go out to fans. And we polled yourself and all the other media and fan sites at Toy Fair before and other times. I was like, you have to make this toy. So from that time, over the next 2.5 months, we prototyped and made a planet mode and robot mode, basically what we brought to Comic-Con. We had them made, and it was very expensive. Very high, five figures plus for these two prototypes. But I know my leadership team was very supportive of it. We made those two prototypes. We called a meeting without letting everyone know what the meeting was about of our senior leadership. Put those two samples in the middle of a conference room table, and we stood against the back wall. And as everybody came into the meeting, the shock and awe on people's faces, like those that have gone to Comic-Con in New York in 19 and 20 was, what are those? So this is what we've been talking about for a year. This is what we want to do. And immediately there was bell rang, we had support, we were off and running and chasing, July for San Diego Comic-Con 19 as our kickoff for the project. So as like an entrepreneur within a company, that's really what it felt like. Is we were, we had to crowdfund internally before we could crowdfund externally, and we had to prove it by building products. And those alone took dozens of people domestically, internationally, with Takara Tomy solving for this. And we did a lot of that before we solved for the overall mass and magnitude and stability and all the other things that you see now in the toy next to you that we had to solve for. So those prototypes are more so a showpiece of what the toy can look like, now how it functioned. We hadn't worked through the function yet. So what you see here then, and a year later, that's where we really put all the function testing through. And we had teams, dedicated teams to Takara Tomy, dedicated teams on the Hasbro side, just working on this product alone. So you look at someone like, I think Kunihiro-san over in Takara worked on this. Normally he's working on dozens of products. He worked on one, just this, for an extended period of time. And it was a monster. But yeah, when you get into the production line, you saw some of the footage there of how, just a glimpse at the amount of people that need to participate in, connecting different pieces and parts, because it is all, obviously the rings can come off, but you can convert it with them on as well. But most of this thing is a snap together complete bot that has to happen at the factory. And then, yes, converted before it goes into the box. So that is, you could do the time. If you took you 20 minutes, multiply that by 11,000 ish robots. It's a lot of conversion for packaging time.
I suppose you get better at it, but oh my God.
There's only so fast I think you can probably do it.
I want to say that it's great, I think, to get a little glimpse into the sheer magnitude and the number of people who, again, had a hand in this thing's creation. And for our role as even an influencer, I guess is what we're called, if we even had a little small part in giving you guys hope that something this ambitious could be done, it's like our own magnum opus of like, I'm so happy that you did. So thank you to you and everyone at Hasbro and Takara and engineering and manufacturing and that took part in pulling this thing off, because I would not have guessed something like this, that I'd ever be sitting here next to something quite this cool. Well, we're in something of just a period of bliss here for us. As much as we love Transformers the movie, Beast Wars has always been a favorite of us and of ours and of many fans. And we're getting some of the best figures of those ever made all at once. So yeah, keep it coming. Thank you.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
We are too.
So thank you. Smiling or happy. We'll just keep making. We'll keep going. No, I think that is the fun, Kevin. I think, Unicron was clearly not the end of anything for us. Obviously, it tested Hasbro and Takara Tomy to do something that's never been done before, a toy of this scale and this weight.
With all those teams that you have in place and doing what they do, you were not too exhausted? You might put them to work on another Transformers HasLab?
Is that a request from Kevin specifically, or Unicron fandom, or all fans around the world, Kevin? What do you give me a scale, because again, it's about crowdfunding. So if it's just you, I don't know if I have enough backing to do it. Start rallying the fandom around another project, and we'll see. All right. Honestly, I think we're excited to finally get this into fans' hands domestically, as our fans internationally have started to get their hands on. But as you guys know, we're putting out hundreds of figures a year. And the opportunity to do another HasLab is exciting. It is stressful and it takes a long time to do and get it right. But it is definitely rewarding when done. And it's about finding the right character in the right time. We definitely do have a list of some desirable projects to do as HasLabs. And we'll obviously keep you and the fandom abreast of updates on that front.
Well, thank you. I just want to thank you again. I really appreciate the opportunity to preview this figure, to answer a lot of the questions I know that are been circulating around the interwebs on since the figure has started being released across the world, and giving us an opportunity to sit down and chat about it, answer questions, and take a quick look before it hits everyone. Thank you for that.
No, thank you, Kevin.